There you all are. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome in to another Saturday night here at the Six Screens. Well, my name is Rick Farron. I'm coming to you from the hub of the universe, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And tonight we have a number of programs. I want you to listen in if you can. We have got Linda James, a pasta babe. She's coming on here next. She's filling in for Anne Marie with a touch by the Tentacles of the Watchtower program. So we're looking forward to that. Let me bring a pasta babe on right now and add it to the stage. Yeah, hello, Linda.
Hi, Rick. How's it going?
Well, going good. Yeah, nice to hear you early here in the afternoon rather than late at night. Right? It's kind of a little different for you, but that's good. You could come on and fill in for Anne Marie, and I appreciate that, and the people do as well. So they're already speaking up here live on YouTube and speaking up on Facebook. So what do you think you might be wanting to talk about tonight, Apostle Babe?
Well, since the Jehovah's Witnesses don't have to put in a scheduled amount of hours, I was going to talk a little bit about that. And I was going to bring up that special letter that was read a few times by a few different apostates. The Dear Neighbor letter talks about all the doctrines, but very, very boldly and very matter of factly, and it's hilarious. So, and then I was going to go into along the lines of Anne Marie suggested, kind of going along the lines of if you've done this, that, or the other, you might be a J-dub. So it can work with what you suggested as far as if you're going, if you've been chased by a dog after knocking on someone's door, you might be a J-dub. And just kind of open the lines and let people have fun with that.
Yeah,
And
we had
or
a we had a blast with that last week. You might be a Jehovah's Witness if, and boy, we were laughing our brains out. It was great. So yeah, that's a great subject again. We'll bring it up here. Yep.
okay.
Excellent. Well, I'll step out of the scene. I'll let you take over. I'm here if you need me. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Hello, all. This is Apostate Babe Linda James, your favorite apostate, and it is my honor to fill in for Anne Marie. Today is October 21st, 2023, and I just wanted to start off with reading the Dear Neighbor letter because, the hours that are to be reported has changed. And, if we wanted to do some kind of ministry, we can maybe send out this letter. It's up to you. Just saying, not telling you to do it or not to do it, but I was contacted by the mysterious author of this letter, and I hope you enjoy this. So I'm going to start reading it now. Dear neighbor, since the end of the world, as we know it, is dangerously near, we are writing to tell you the things your minister has not told you, but which Jehovah's Witnesses, jw.org, want you to know. Jesus Christ is Michael the Archangel, returned invisibly in the year 1914, the start of the last days, and proceeded to judge all Christian religions. In 1919, Jesus personally selected the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, aka Jehovah's Witnesses, as God's Spirit-directed organization to preach the good news of God's kingdom before God destroys all human governments and false religions in the approaching battle of Armageddon, Matthew 24:14. Therefore, it is imperative that everyone who wishes to avoid destruction by Jehovah at Armageddon become a Jehovah's Witness as soon as possible. Admittedly, the Watchtower previously claimed that Armageddon would definitely occur in 1914, then again in 1925. Then it was strongly suggested that it would occur in 1975, when Watchtower officials coined the phrase, "stay alive till 75," but those were just predictions of imperfect men. This time, however, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is really sure, so do not hesitate any longer. Do not make the common mistake of reading your Bible without the aid of Watchtower publications, because you might conclude that Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is Christ's faithful and discreet slave, Matthew 24:45, and only the governing body can accurately interpret the Bible. So forget everything your minister has told you, because all religions except for Jehovah's Witnesses are false religions, and their ministers are actually ministers of Satan who has blinded your eyes. They may preach that Jesus is the mediator between God and man, 1 Timothy 2:5, but they have not told you that Jesus is only the mediator for the 144,000 Christians who are spirit anointed to go to heaven. True, Jesus said that no one comes to the Father except through him, but the only way to Jesus is through the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, the faithful and discreet slave. Only 144,000 Christians are given the hope of going to heaven with Jesus. Revelations 14:1. All other Christians who survive Armageddon will enjoy everlasting life on a cleansed paradise earth. Psalms 37:10 and 11. Only a small number of the 144,000 spirit anointed Christians remain on earth today, and all of those are Jehovah's Witnesses. They alone should partake of the bread and wine when commemorating the annual Lord's evening meal. Jehovah's Witnesses believe it is a sin to accept life-saving blood transfusions because the Bible plainly tells Christians to abstain from ... blood. Acts 15:20. Admittedly, many scholars say that the only biblical prohibition regarding blood was against eating the blood of animals killed for food. But those scholars are wrong, because the faithful and discreet slave says so. Thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses, men, women, and children, have died for refusing life-saving blood transfusions because only the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses can determine what is or is not a matter of conscience, because they speak for Jehovah himself. And according to the Watchtower, one must be prepared to obey the governing body or one's local elders, even if doing so makes no sense from a strategic or human standpoint. If one dies needlessly by doing so, there's always the resurrection hope for those who die for obeying the governing body. People who leave their family's religion and become a Jehovah's Witness are often disowned and shunned by their families. Such persecution is to be expected because Jesus said he came to cause such divisions among families. However, when Jehovah's Witnesses ostracize, cut off, and shun family members who leave their religion for conscientious reasons, such as unscriptural Watchtower teachings and practices, it is out of love to help the straying one return to Jehovah. Tearing families apart out of love is encouraged by the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. Don't be distracted by all those lawsuits and negative publicity against Jehovah's Witnesses for failing to report the crimes of pedophile elders, ministerial servants, and pioneers, aka ministries within their congregation, which crimes were never reported to civil authorities, but were kept hidden in a secret Watchtower database. Jehovah's Witnesses are in the world, but they are not of the world. As Jehovah's representatives, they have the right to disobey laws when they deem them to be in conflict with Jehovah's laws, like the first century Christians. Jehovah's Witnesses must obey Jehovah as ruler rather than men. So it is okay for Jehovah's Witnesses to withhold the truth for the purpose of misleading enemies of Jehovah, even if they do so in the court of law after having sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Before visiting a Kingdom Hall, Jehovah's Witnesses Before visiting a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, be advised that Jehovah's Witnesses are well groomed and modestly dressed. Their female approved associates wear minimal makeup and jewelry and choose dresses that show no cleavage and hemlines below the knee. Their male approved associates refrain from wearing beards and tight pants, which were designed by homosexuals, according to the Faithful and Discreet Slave. Visitors are encouraged to adhere to these guidelines in order to fit in and to avoid receiving judgmental stares from others. So, this is that special letter that has gone around. And I'm not sure if a PME has written this or if an outright ex Jehovah's Witness has written it. It's still a bit of a mystery who put this letter together. But every time I've heard it and every time I've read it, I cannot find anything inaccurate about it. I mean, it really sums up the teachings. And when you hear it just put out there as plain as day, it's so obviously disturbing, you know, that it's very confusing. Um, but yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you guys today. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. And like Rick was suggesting, um, maybe you didn't hear, but he brought up the subject of what might have been an interesting event of back in the time when you did go out door to door, whether it was funny or whether it was scary or disturbing or shocking. But I kind of want to integrate that in with what they were doing last weekend, which was something to the effect of, if you this, that, and the other, you might be a J-Dub. So, in other words, if you have a four-door car or a minivan that was picked out especially for the purpose of making sure you can bring the brothers and sisters with you out in service, you may be a J-Dub. So we can kind of come up with some of those things that that just kind of off the top of your mind might come to, um, so we can bring it up and just kind of laugh about it, because it's the irony of it is hilarious. Or if there's something else on your mind and that's where you want to take it, we can do that too. But yeah, does anybody have any stories that from the time they went out in service? So what I'm saying is, you can share the story, or you can incorporate it into that kind of a joking thing. If you did this, that, and if you got chased away by a dog when you went out in service, you might be a J-Dub, kind of like that. But it's up to you, however you want to share that. So I'm opening up the lines for callers to call in. And if anybody's on the line, you can dial *6 and you can speak from dialing *6. After that, please dial *6 again to mute yourself. Is anybody there have anything on their minds as far as stories from back in the day when you were going out door to door? Anything kind of funny or strange or out of the usual kind of
Well, I'll kind of start it off, Apostle Babe. Yeah, it's a good subject. We played around with it last week a little bit, but I'll tell you my favorite one. A woman called into the program, and yeah, she gave away a prize, and we had a good 20, 30 people calling in with all kinds of crazy thoughts. But the woman won the prize last week for you might be a Jehovah's Witness if you have a pillow for a girlfriend.
okay.
You-
Yes.
well,
Yes. This goes back to Pillowgate.
yeah,
You know,
right. Yeah. So we
so
found that really we all had a big chuckle over that. But they were coming in. I'm just trying to think of some of the ones they brought up here. If you think a Pioneer is not a stereo, I mean, Pioneer Electronics.
that is
If
cute.
you think tract has something to do with a piece of land, just little things like that. We all kind of
Yeah.
had our own way of doing business. If you have get-togethers instead of parties, right?
Right.
You
Right.
might be
Yep.
a Jehovah's Witness. So I'm sure some of the people have some other thoughts on it. Well, why don't you come up with something? It doesn't have to be totally funny. It can be kind of just kind of a reminiscent of you being a witness, and
Yeah.
that's what it was when we were witnesses. We all kind of had our own thoughts on things, right? In other words, an RV. If we're Jehovah's Witness, we know what RV meant. That was a return visit. But it isn't
That's
a
right.
everybody, the world looks at RV as a recreational vehicle. So some different things,
Yes.
some different
Yes.
things. So if you
And
have some, right, in fact, Linda, they can even type it in on Facebook.
okay. And can you share the phone number again
Yeah, the
for
phone number is I'll put I'll put the phone number right up. Thank you for reminding me. But I'll put that phone number right up on YouTube, and it'll be on Facebook as well. So if you want to call in to the program, just just dial this number, and you'll come in. Give me a second to find it here, and
Okay.
there we go. Okay, call into the program. Okay, there it goes right there. So, anyways, call that number. You might be a Jehovah's Witness if, yeah, we had some really funny stories last week. It was absolutely crazy. Yeah, you might be a Jehovah's Witness. Yes.
Apostle Bay, this is Ellen from Southern California.
Hi, Ellen.
I was raised as a witness, but left when I turned 18 in 1972.
Wow.
However, I had to go door to door. And one time I was with a friend and we went up to this door and this man answered with no clothes on.
I've heard about
We
this
were
kind of stuff.
really freaked. And
Now we're
he invited us in.
oh
He
my
wanted us
God.
to come in, and we just started backing down the driveway and said, no, we'll come back another time. That was a lie. But also, I wanted just to mention, I wanted to mention that we were a lot of times spiritually weak. And so the elders were always coming over to our place and giving us the business for not going out door to door all the time. So one time they came to visit, and one of our little dogs bit the elder on the leg, and we just thought that was the funniest thing.
Oh my God.
So no
Whoa.
wonder they don't want to come and tell us to go door to door, count the time, because they have to do the shepherding calls.
That's true. So you're I'm Southern California. I'm Southern California too, and left in about like 83.
Yeah.
So
I'm over here in Lake Forest.
Lake Forest. Okay. I'm in Orange County. So we're both in Orange County. Huntington Beach. Yeah. You'll have to have a phone call sometime if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I don't know if we're friends yet on Facebook, but please look for me. I go by Linda James on Facebook rather than Apostle Babe Linda James.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's my little story, and I'm sticking to it.
Sticking to it. Yes, I love it. The dog bit an elder. How many times have we wished for that?
Smiling. They were smiling, but you could tell they weren't too happy. But
Yes.
you know that BS where they come and bother you at your home because you didn't put in the 10 hours or the whatever amount they wanted, which was 10 hours in the old days.
Right.
And it's just ridiculous. So
I agree. And
I didn't have
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We didn't have internet then or anything, so we didn't know, what a crummy up outfit they are.
Yeah. Now, would you get a phone call that they were coming, or did they show up unannounced?
No, no, they always just showed up. I've
Unannounced.
never
Okay.
had a witness call ahead. They never call ahead, ever.
I think one of my
At least
pet
in
peeves
my old,
is
I haven't been in since '72, so maybe they've changed.
okay. I think one of my pet peeves is if they call you at
Anyway,
work or show up at your job. That irritates me to no end.
so
But yeah, there's a few different things
yeah,
that
I
could designate you as spiritually weak. I missed what you said. Go ahead.
Hi, Linda.
everybody thinks you're. Oh, thanks.
Hello.
Bye.
Thanks for calling in, sweetheart. Hi, hi. This sounds like Angela. Is this Angela?
No, it's Nadine.
Oh, forgive me. Hi, Nadine. How are you?
Hi, it's your BFF from
Right,
from Southern California.
my BFF,
Anyway, I just called
and
to really what
miss your name.
what?
You're my BFF, yet I miss your name. I call you a different name,
Oh,
so that's bad.
It's,
Bad on
it's
my part.
Nadine.
Yes,
No, but
Nadine.
I take it as a compliment if you think I sound like Angela. That's nice.
Oh, good, good.
I like Angela's voice.
Mhm.
Anyways, I just really called to say hi because it's early, right? And normally I can't really talk too much to you because you're on so late.
Yeah.
And, I'm an early bird and I'm not really a night owl that much. But so I thought, hey, I'm going to take the opportunity to say hi to Linda during the day.
I'm glad
And,
you did.
anyways, yeah, this is nice that you're on early. I like that.
Yeah, I'm filling in for Anne Marie, the Touched by the
I
Tentacles.
know.
She's having some
Right.
technical
I like that.
difficulties, and
Okay. Yeah. So I
her,
don't know. This isn't like a funny story, and I think I've told you this before. It's about how do you know if you're a Jehovah's Witness? Is that what it is?
yes, yeah,
Okay. Well, I've told you this story, I'm sure, before, but I don't know if how many people have heard it. But when I was in high school, um, there was a big dance at the school. It was the 50s dance. And of course, my brother, Kevin, played the guitar and he imitated Elvis Presley. And so he was the main big entertainment that was going to happen. He was at school, the entertainment, like in the senior squad, but also he was going to be the main entertainment at the dance that night. And
wow,
so I really wanted to go. I really wanted to go really bad, right? Because my brother is, going to be there singing.
hmm
And my brother never got baptized, but I was
oh,
baptized and I took things more seriously. And so that's how he got away with all this. And plus, my mother was a witness, but my father was not. So it was kind of, he probably felt like it's no big deal. I can do whatever I want. And he wasn't baptized. But I took things very seriously at that age. And so I got all dressed for the dance in the evening. And I remember sitting on the floor in my bedroom and just looking in the mirror and saying, I really want to go. I really want to go. And I dressed up really cute, like for the 50s. I had a real cute, like plaid skirt on. I had my hair in a ponytail with a scarf and I had the real cute shoes, the 50s shoes and everything. And I talked myself out of not going because of the guilt that I had. Like, if I go, this is going to be so bad. I'm not going to be a good witness. I'm not going to be a good Jehovah's Witness. And, that's pretty much how I lived my life. I missed out on so many things. And anyways, that just makes me feel really sad. But nevertheless, my brother was there and I didn't go. I like self-punished myself, and it wasn't even my mother. My mother didn't say, you can't go.
right.
I was the one that said I can't go because of all the brainwashing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That whole bad associations, and
story.
I don't recall
Yeah.
hearing
It's
this story, so thank you
it's
for sharing it. So
Yeah,
many,
it's more of a sad story.
but I think a lot of people can actually relate to it without having your parents say so. But the self-regulation of what can I do or
Right,
cannot do would be going on in our minds
exactly.
all the time, all the time. How is this going to make
And
Jehovah look? We were taught
exactly. And I probably
that
could
we
have
were
gone.
representatives.
My mom probably wouldn't have even cared because, she was, an older mother at that point, and I was the baby of the family, and she was tired. She probably wouldn't even have cared that I even went, and she knew my brother was there because he was playing the guitar and entertaining everybody. So it was really strange. It was a really strange dynamic. But I just punished myself and didn't
That's so
go.
fascinating. I bet if more people think about it, we did this to ourselves all the time and didn't think twice
Oh,
about it. And I think they call this a Bible trained conscience. Yes, that's what they call it. A Bible trained
and for
conscience.
what? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Because with the brand new light that's come out, you can pretty much do what you want to do and live your life, and then just jump on the bandwagon at the very end of the tribulation and be saved. And there's not supposed to be any judgment. So, looking back on it, I sacrificed so much of my life for what? For absolutely nothing.
To please Jehovah. This is, we wanted
Right.
to please Jehovah.
But with the brand new light, I did it for nothing.
Yeah. Yes. That's so fascinating.
Well, anyway.
I recently saw a picture about something that the org has put out. I don't know if it's an article. I believe it's an article about tattoos. And does it, does getting a tattoo make someone sad? And evidently the people that don't approve of the tattoos is who it makes sad. But
I,
scripture also says that
and
God
what's funny?
tattoos
There's
our
a lot of
name within the
witnesses.
palm of his hands. I'm sorry, what?
What's funny is a lot of witnesses have tattoos.
Yeah.
I know some witnesses, and they have tattoos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I was saying a
And
minute ago
so,
is that
yeah,
scripture says that God has tattooed our name in the palm of his hands. Of course, this is metaphorical, but it's so that we remember. You know how when we need to write something down and we'll put it like right on the
right,
back of our hand or the palm so
yeah,
that we remember it. That's how we're spoken of, his people, So
okay.
if
I
God's
couldn't hear
doing a
you. I'm
tattoo,
sorry. I didn't know you were saying that.
oh, okay, yeah, that.
Right.
Did you hear it this
I
time?
thought you were talking about literal tattoos.
No, it's a metaphor, but it's spoken of as engraving or tattooing in scripture.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear you. That's why I thought it was the other tattoos.
Okay. Is my sound off or sounding wonky or
No,
okay?
no, but sometimes, like if I'm talking and then you talk, I can't hear right
Oh,
away. Like there might be a little bit of a delay. I don't know.
okay. Yeah, that
But
story you
I
told
happen
is
to know
really something.
witnesses. Yeah, I know. It's more of a sad story. Like if there was a prize for the sad story, that might be a contender.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, it's not a
Talk
funny. It's not funny. Yeah,
No, it's not. You talked yourself out of really,
having a good time. Yeah.
exactly. And how you got ready for it and everything. And then you looked in the mirror and talked to yourself and you talked yourself out of it.
Well, Linda, Linda, I'm gonna step in. That was a sad story Nadine talked about. I'll tell you what, Nadine, I'm gonna give you a prize. It was so sad.
Yay.
Okay.
Do you like a Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, thank you.
Do you like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks?
Oh boy, I like both.
We are.
How about we go with Starbucks?
All right, I'll try to do that. Sometimes they give me trouble on that, so the alternative would be Duncan. But send me your email address. I'll send you a gift certificate to one of those companies, and just send your address to me, your email address to jwworldnews@gmail.com. Okay, Nadine?
Okay, I have you in my contacts, Rick.
Okay, Nadine, will you do that, because that story kind of touched me too. I thought you were going to say that you get all ready and you want to go see your brother and you're all excited and looking so forward to it. I thought you were going to say that your mother stopped you from going, but you stopped yourself.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
I stopped myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, my mom was the witness, but my dad was not. So she was kind of more like, didn't really care as much. It was really a strange dynamic because she did care about a lot of things, but I probably could have, gone if I really wanted to. But I stopped myself from going. And I did that a lot with things growing up. I stopped myself.
Boy, you can really see how they really have stifled a lot of people, Nadine. Well, look at all of the fun. Look at all the fun we all could have had if we just could have been normal, free people,
Right. And meanwhile, my brother, who never got baptized, he was having the time of his life.
I never got baptized, but I didn't get to have a time of my life. It was still very oppressive. I was
Right.
Oh my.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm just so glad that I got to talk to you, Linda, because usually you're on so late, and I'm usually in bed by then. But I just wanted to call in and tell you that little story. And I have another story too, but I don't know. There's probably not enough time about how I won a typing contest, and I was supposed to go to another high school. What?
Tell me, please do. Please tell me about it.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So I won a typing contest. There were 3 winners, and I was a sophomore at this point. So the girl that won first place and second place, they were seniors. It's about how many words you can type a minute. So I came in 3rd place, but I was a sophomore, so they had, more years of practice. But nevertheless, it was this big contest, and I won 3rd place. So I was supposed to go with the other 2 girls that were seniors and go to another high school to compete. And I stayed home from school. I never even told my mother that I won, the contest and that I was supposed to go. And I just didn't go to school. And then the teacher called, was very upset, the business teacher, the typing teacher, and said, why wasn't Nadine at school? And there was a bus, and they were busing the girls to another high school to compete. And we needed her here to represent, Braille Linda, high school. And my mom goes, what? I didn't know she won a typing contest. But I just didn't go because I just didn't feel it was necessary because school wasn't that important. Now, if my dad would have known about it, he would have had a fit because he was all about school. My dad was, had his PhD in chemistry. So he was all about school. But being raised as a witness, I was told that I probably wouldn't even graduate from school. So I just stayed home and didn't go to the other high school with the other girls. And I knew the other girls and I really liked them. We all got along really well. And I just stayed home and didn't go. That was another sad story.
Did
and the teacher was
the fact that it was a competition have anything to do with it as well? Because I know that competition is kind of considered not the thing to do, not to be competitive.
Right, but that's not why I self-punished myself for that. I didn't care about the competition. Like, I liked competition.
Okay.
It wasn't that. It was just that I thought, well, it's not that important. Who cares? I don't really have to go. And like I said, my mother was an older mom. So I basically, if I wanted to go to school, I went to school. If I didn't want to go to school, I mean, I did go to school, but that day I just thought, what's the point? What's the point in going? School's not that important. I'm probably not going to graduate anyway because, Armageddon's going to come. Because this was like in 1974.
Right.
So,
Okay.
well, heck, Armageddon, I really didn't even believe in that Armageddon for 75, not so much. I really didn't. But I just thought, what's the point? What's the point in going? It's for school. And it's because they told us that school wasn't important.
This is true.
And yeah, and so that's another sad story. I'm very upset. I'm very upset that I was raised that way. I wish my mom did not become a Jehovah's Witness. She was raised Catholic, and somebody knocked on her door. The whole idea about living in a paradise forever, and then that was it. That's what she wanted. And
I
I just wish I was not raised a Jehovah's Witness. That's all I can say.
feel the same way, and yet I can understand the attractiveness because, my mother was recruited as well, and when they present something to the effect of you can see dead relatives once again, that must be very attractive too. Everybody has lost someone, a family member, or someone in death, so that usually works for everybody. That seems to be a draw.
Right, right. And my mother took it to the limit because she preached to my father constantly, and that's what broke up her marriage. She actually broke up her marriage with my dad because she was preaching so much to him, and he didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't want to hear about it. But anyways, I'll let somebody else come on, Linda, but I just wanted to call and say hi, and I had a couple little stories for you.
Thank you for sharing both of them. Yeah, it really
You're welcome.
really shows the teaching and how effective the brainwashing can be, that we literally talk ourselves out of stuff. Yeah.
Right. And both times my mother had nothing to do with it. She did
Mhm.
not tell me I couldn't do either one. I think she would have wanted me to go to the competition for the typing because she thought that was great that I was, typing, and I did so well on typing, and my dad was real proud of it too. But I just thought, what's the point? I never told her. I never told any of them, really. I kept a lot of things to myself
Yeah.
when I was young, because I just didn't think anybody really cared about it,
Wow.
So, yep. So anyways, thank you very much. And I will talk to you again later on. Maybe we can, stay in touch and get together
Okay. Okay.
sometime soon.
I would
Okay.
like
So
that.
you have
Thank
a
you.
good program then, rest of your program. Okay.
Thank you. And I
Bye-bye.
appreciate you
Okay.
sharing your two stories. Um, you know
You're
that
welcome.
that was just something else about how her self-talk took her to a place of eliminating opportunities to socialize. And that's the
Yeah.
reason that many of us are socially stunted and why we are awkward in getting along with people when we leave the organization. We say um, just strange stuff that we think's a good idea, but because we haven't socialized, many of us haven't socialized enough. We kind of just don't know what's socially acceptable or what's socially unacceptable. So that's something that as we're leaving the organization, that's one of those things that we have to discover and learn, to take social clues when somebody is hinting around about something because they don't want to just straight up tell you. You might not be aware of what those hints are. You know what I'm saying? So that's fascinating how she talked herself out of 2 social events. That's fascinating. But yes, that goes along with Watchtower teaching. That's exactly how we were taught to think, is to not be involved in both of those things. Yeah. Anybody else have anything
And
in
one more
mind?
thing, and then I'm going to go. I was just
Okay.
going to say that's very harmful. That's very harmful for, growing up. That's very harmful to feel that way, to feel like you just can't belong. You can't, do anything social in school. It's very, very harmful. And this organization is responsible for all of this dysfunction. And they should be held accountable. They should.
I hear what you're saying. And when people have goals, then they function with a sense of hope to accomplish these goals. Sure, sometimes we don't accomplish these goals and come up with plan B, C, D, or whatever. But having the idea of having some goals and working towards them or looking forward to them is really healthy mindset. But to having the mindset that why bother? Because we're not going to be doing these things anyways. Why invest ourselves into practices or techniques that would get us to those places of having a goal? It's that's very unhealthy. Very unhealthy. And when people do have a hope for something that they want to do and they're heading in that direction and doing things, it's very it's exciting, it's encouraging, it's healthy. Even if you find yourself at a point where you realize, well, that's not going to work, you know, for these reasons, then you yourself come up with the reasons why you're not going to do it. All of these things are in your control, but we were vulnerable with having things out of our control. You know, we were just informed how it's going to be, and it's going to be any day now. So yeah, I agree with you. It's very unhealthy.
Hey, Linda.
Hi.
Hey, just piggybacking on what Nadine said. On the chat section, I gave a formal apology to Jane Carvajal in my high school because she told me my senior year that she didn't have a date for the prom, and we were good friends. And here's the thing: everything is sexualized with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Jane and I were friends, and I wanted to go to the prom with her because we were friends. I mean, well, she didn't laugh at all of my jokes, but and in the 20, in the reunion, I wanted the 20-year. I think it was a 10 or 20-year reunion, and I apologized to her in front of everybody, and she laughed it off, and she knew. But when a girl tells you, "I don't have a date to the prom," I mean, talk about the signal. It's like like at the airport. She has But anyways, she was signaling me. But yeah, I think we all could relate to that story because and the phrase is some of the I learned this from somebody else, but I didn't watch that TV show called Arrested Development. But that's what we as Jehovah's Witnesses suffered. We all of us that were born in, we suffered from arrested development. And you talked about that, about our social problems, our friendship problems and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm glad Nadine won the award, but I wanted to get this out to Rick, and I'm not saying this because I want to win a prize, but I got you might be a Jehovah's Witness, and I'll say this in a second, and that's somebody else. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I put this on the chat. If your dog goes out and gets dirty with your next door neighbor's dog, the neighbor's dog, and you kick that dog out of your house, you're probably a J-Dub. like the dog fornicated, with the neighbor.
Okay. Oh, they went and played patty cake kind of dirty. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
I thought
so
like they were playing in the mud or something, but no, you're talking playing
have to
patty
spray
cake.
them with the
Okay.
water. Yeah, you have to get the water hose to get the dogs off of each other.
Right. So that would be a bad example for the rest of the family. Actually, that is a throw.
The dog comes back home. You have a meeting with the wife. And then you
Yeah.
kick the dog out.
That's right, for the behavior and becoming of a Christian.
And one last one. I told this to JP. If your dog dies and he doesn't go to heaven, he probably was raised by JWs. Because all dogs do go to heaven. That is a
Yes,
known.
they do. Yes, they do. Except for Jehovah's
All
Witness
right.
doggies,
Love
because
you,
they're
Linda.
not part of the. Love you too, sweetheart. They're not part of the doggy 144,000. But I tend to believe animals do get resurrected in some kind of afterlife. I mean, if Revelation says there's 4 horses, I'm going to believe that we have, that when we lose an animal, a 4-legged family member, they go over the rainbow bridge, and I just want to believe
You know
that
what
there's an
happens?
afterlife for them. Yes?
No, they get reincarnated, and that would explain how they have that instinct. Because they're like deja vu, like, hey, I've been here before. Yeah, you were reincarnated. So that solves the problem.
That's fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, however an afterlife can be. That one sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Okay.
Hey, Linda.
Hi, who's this?
Linda,
Yes.
this is Stefan. How are you today?
Good. Hi.
Hi. I just had a question. I think you were talking about interesting experiences of field service, correct?
Yes.
I had 2, if you don't mind indulging me. The first was the house that I live in now, and I've been here about 18 years. I was in the ministry one day, literally about a half a block away from where I live, same street, just a half a block away. And the short story is that there was an elderly person who must have been a witness at some point in his life, and he died. And the family was there, and they were packing up and basically throwing away all this stuff. And once I got to the door to knock on it and witness, I realized that all this information that they were throwing away was all old Watchtower material. And
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine how far back it must have gone, because apparently this gentleman was like in his 90s. And I said, well, I'm going to get my truck and come back and get all this material. And when I said that, the witnesses lost their mind. You can't read that. You can't. I mean, just to
The ones you were with?
I mean, what's that?
The witnesses that were with you, or witnesses at that home?
Yeah, the witnesses that were with me when I walked up to the door. And when I knocked on the door, the family was obviously busy, and I just excused myself and told them to have a nice day. And that's when I saw all the literature, and they were like, "Hey, you can take it. It's all Jehovah's Witness stuff. You can take it."
Wow.
And I said, "Okay." And I saw how old it was, and they was like, "Yeah, this is definitely stuff I've never seen before, because I've read pretty much everything from the 70s on, but this was 50s and so forth and so on." And the witnesses that I was in service with lost their mind about how you can't read that, and that's old light, and you can't touch, don't even look at that. I mean, you would have thought, I can't even put it into words, you would have thought it was Satan the devil himself that I was going to go get and bring down, to my house. And that always stood out to me, that why would the literature in the organization, because it's 40 years old or 50 years old or whatever it was, be something that you shouldn't read? I mean, they treated it worse than the worst literature out there, and that never left my head. I was thinking to myself, there's something bizarre about this.
Right.
The second that has always stuck with me was, again, not in my same area. It's kind of funny how this stuff happened right around where I live. And I knocked on this door, and a middle-aged man came to the door, and we had a great conversation. Because one of the things people always say, I hated ministry. I hated ministry just like everybody else. But what made it bearable was that sometimes people would have the householders would have some really interesting things that they talked about that as witnesses, I just never, because I can only speak for me, I just never even thought of. But he was talking about how two things, both of them having to do with Egypt. And he was talking about how there was a ruler in Egypt, and I'm going by memory, but I believe the name was Akhenaten. And Akhenaten was either the son or the grandson of Amenhotep, which is where the word Amen comes from, Amenhotep.
Okay.
And he was explaining how all cultures at that time in history had different gods. They were all polytheistic. You had a god for this, and god for rain, and a god for growing crops, and a god for this and that. You had war and everything else. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And what he was saying is that this particular Pharaoh, when he came to power, he tried to institute monotheism. And I don't know if that's in its pure form, literally, or only worshiping one god. I don't know exactly what the details were. I don't think anybody does. But that was so hated. He only ruled for a short amount of time. I don't even remember if he was killed or not. He might have killed. I know he was kind of banished to get to run for his life. And then the Egyptians went immediately back to being polytheistic. The second thing that came out of that, still on an Egyptian plane, was what was called the negative confession. And I want to say that there's 42, but don't quote me because I'm no expert on it. But what he was showing is that there are many commandments from the Mosaic Law that literally come word for word from the 42 negative confessions that the Egyptians had written. So the point that he was, which far outdate the Old Testament, far outdates the Old Testament. And of course, even when we think about the Old Testament, you think about the Pentateuch, that's Moses. And where does Moses come from? Egypt. Where was he educated? Egypt. And so he would have known all of these things. And so what this guy was explaining was that the Old Testament was really just ripping off of the customs, the practices, the laws, almost like I said, verbatim from the Egyptians, so that these things predate Moses. It's not that the cultures are ripping off of Moses. No, Moses and the Hebrews are ripping off of them. And when he said that, it was just like a light bulb went off in my mind, and I just knew he was right. And so once I woke up, I began the waking up process, which had nothing to do with Egypt. It had just to do with Watchtower and all of its flip-flopping doctrine and all the like. But once I started waking up, and I gave myself permission to just read history, and I remember what this guy told me, and I went up and I realized he was talking about Akhenaten, so I read about Akhenaten and Amenhotep, the 12 negative confessions, and I realized that what this guy had told me was absolutely right. And it also made me think about other things that people have told us in the ministry that turned out to be 100% right. Like they used to always say that the Jehovah's Witness Bible is not a real Bible. It is a Bible that has been completely changed and tampered with just to support their views. It's not a real Bible. And we used to always discount them and tell them, no, your Bible is junk. Ours is the only right one. And then, of course, once we wake up and study, we begin to realize they were right. Our Bible was trash. So anyway, those were just two things in the ministry that just never left me because it turned out to be 100% true.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. As you were talking about, monotheism, meaning one God, different cultures or just society at large, over time, over history, we can see that when things happened and we couldn't come up with a logical answer, what was custom is to name it as a god, to appease the gods. A volcano would explode, or something we couldn't get rain, so the god of rain must be upset. Things like that. So to make it logical in their heads. So taking away the possibility of allowing these people to be able to think this way was just, it limited them, and that would make them upset. That makes sense that would not last very long.
Right.
Yeah.
And even when you go back and you think about the Hebrews, I mean, they would do the same thing when you think about it. If they had to go to war, or if there was a drought because it hadn't rained, they would go and do the same thing. They'd go and they'd rip their garments, and they wouldn't eat, and they wouldn't shave, and they were trying to offer sacrifices to appease God so that he would give them victory in war, or that he would give them rain so that they could have crops, so that there would be no more drought. So they were doing the same thing.
Yes, and if you think about it, now that you mention this,
other cultures and civilizations were doing.
yes, now that you're saying this, what's popping into my mind is how often, as somebody will teach from the platform, they will say, in order to please God, we will do this behavior, and this other behavior displeases God. So we know we're going to get the wrath of God
Right.
if we displease him, but to get his approval, we want to please him, because the wrath of God is going to be really bad, so it's still this kind of pleasing, or making sure they're okay, which turns us into flaming codependents. Yeah.
And you know what else, Linda? There's something that's always stood out to me when you get on this particular subject. And I was thinking about it again, going back to Moses. So when Moses is sent back to confront Pharaoh to say that he wants the Hebrews to leave, and you remember that he takes a staff, and the staff, he throws it down, and it turns into a snake. But remember that the Egyptians also took staffs, and they were able to turn those staffs into snakes as well. It just so happens that Moses' snake is able to eat their snake. And I always used to wonder, well, wait a minute. So are we saying that they have almost the same power as Yahweh would have, in that they can turn inanimate objects into, how are they able to do that?
Yeah.
And the Bible, of course, doesn't discuss that at all. It just says that, I don't even know if they call them magic practicing priests. I forget what the Egyptian religious ones were called. But I always thought about that. Where is their power coming from? Because it's almost as strong as the same power. They were able to turn their staffs into snakes the same way that that Moses was able to. And of course, they do the whole thing with magic. Like, oh, your magic might be a little bit stronger than mine, but they still had magic. Where did it come from?
Right. And what comes to mind for me right now is there's no purpose for a counterfeit anything unless there is an authentic something to begin with. So you have to have the authentic first for the counterfeit to do anybody any good. You know what I mean? There would not be money coming from the Egyptians still floating around and thinking we're going to be able to get anything with it today. It has to be counterfeit money that looks like the money that's authentic today,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So anyway, those are that always stood out to me. It just was so interesting.
It is. And I've always thought about how when Moses came down from the burning bush, and he was very upset because the community had melted down all their gold and made a golden calf. They had not yet gotten the commandment to not perform idolatry, meaning having other gods besides Yahweh, So I remember thinking, but they haven't been informed of that yet. So it was a thing that they were used to doing. And it was, doing things that are ritualistic or a practice or a habit. There's comfort in that,
Mm-hmm. Right. And you know what's fascinating? And if anybody doesn't believe this, they can go and look at what modern Bible scholars, Old Testament scholars, are saying. And what they're saying is that the ancient cultures, including the Jews, which were really just Canaanites, by the way, they were never purely monotheistic. So even when you step back, Jehovah's Witnesses always like to frame this particular period that the Jews were monotheistic, and occasionally they would make a foray into polytheism, right? But the reality is it was the opposite. They were always polytheistic, and occasionally they would make a foray into monotheists, but they were always pluralistic. And even when, up until the time of Solomon, and I've read this numerous times, actually, I probably need to go and revisit it, but they were saying how in the temple itself, there were rooms for male temple prostitution.
Yes.
And I know I've even seen that in Watchtower literature, older literature. I don't remember, I wish I did, Linda. I don't remember if it was like the A book. I don't remember, but I know it was in there. And they were saying how there were even rooms that in Solomon's temple dedicated to male temple prostitution.
Yes.
That was going on right there in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jews, just like all the other cultures, they were never purely monotheistic. They were polytheistic with occasional forays into monotheism, and then they go right back to being polytheistic, which is essentially what they always were, which is why it's exactly what you just said. The first thing they did when they had exited Egypt was to go and make this calf and worship it. So it's like our whole frame of that Old Testament is completely wrong because of Watchtower. Watchtower never taught us the truth. They just taught us what they wanted us to know.
Yep, this is true. This is very true.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for telling us all that. This is fascinating. Rick, it's about at that hour point. I'm wanting to check in with you as far as the time is concerned. Are you?
Oh, yeah, Linda, I'd say go another 10 minutes or so if you want. Yeah, keep it rolling till about, say, about 7:05 or so. Be fine. Be 2 your time. 5 what time is it out there?
Right now, it is 3:50 p.m. So,
all right, go about 3. Go to about 3:05. We'll be fine.
Okay, we've got another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Audience. Okay, thank you, Rick. Yeah, that's fascinating. When we really, really, really look into history, all history, different forms of history, different cultures and such, and the gods that were worshipped or used or whatever, it's very fascinating. Very fascinating. And I've always wondered, why is the God of the New Testament so interested and involved with land on earth, like land and bloodshed? Like, why is this a big deal to him that for a lot of bloodshed to happen and a lot of, like, why would a God of the universe care about some portion of land on earth? I don't know. It's just, you know what I'm saying? To me, it's like, why would that be important to him? And why is there blood as a cleansing sacrifice, during the time it was temporary, like only for a year, and then at the time of Christ, why did his blood need to be shed? Why is it blood that cleanses us?
Yeah.
It could have been anything else, and it's the blood. And go ahead.
And then another question is, why is the God of the Old Testament so different from the God of the New Testament? Because the God of the Old Testament was a mean, nasty mother. I'm telling you. The incident that never escapes my mind is when the Ark of the Covenant had been taken. You remember it was kind of bouncing around and everywhere it went, people were getting piles and all that.
Yes.
And then it started being brought back, and it was on a cart, and it almost got tipped over, and the guy reaches out just to grab it to keep her from tipping over, and he instantly was dead.
Right.
So that's the God of the Old Testament who would kill you just as soon look at you and kill anybody else, and didn't care about killing old people, young people, virgins, old men, young men. But then you get to the New Testament, and it's all about love. It's like the 60s, it's all love. And
totally.
Like, is this even the same God? Like, is this guy schizophrenic? What is going on?
Yeah,
And even Jesus makes this bizarre statement where he says, you can sum up the entire law, 500 something laws, into love God with everything, love your fellow man with everything. And I just was just that when I got older, and you really, you get that ability to think and self-aware. And I was thinking to myself, well, why would you give me 500 and something laws? And every time I break one, I got to go kill some poor animal. Instead of just telling me to love God with everything in me, love my fellow man with everything. Why didn't you just tell me that in the first
place? Great question.
And it was just questions like that just, yeah. It's like if I say, Linda, I want you to go and do this one thing for me. And then you start doing it. You're all week long doing it, whatever it is. And you finally come back to me Friday and say, hey, that thing you asked me for on Monday? Here it is. I got it for you. And I said, you've been working on this whole time? Yeah, I've been working on this whole time. Linda, all you had to do was go over here to this drawer and pull it out. It was right there. You just said to me, why didn't you tell me that in the first place? Look at all the time you had me wait. You'd be really frustrated and irritated. And I always wondered.
I would be very irritated with you. Mm-hmm.
Just say that in the first place.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I never understood this obsession with killing animals, and smoking them. I like barbecue as much as anybody else, but I mean, this is a little crazy.
Yeah, it's mysterious. Yeah, it's very, very mysterious.
Yep. Yeah. And then the fact that all of these, what Watchtower would call pagan gods, you can go from the Egyptian gods and go into any other culture that you want. They all had the same thing about sacrificing and burning incense and the smell appeasing the gods. So it's like all these cultures are kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Part of Sodom and Gomorrah
about all this stuff.
Yeah, part of Sodom and Gomorrah, you were talking about certain rooms with male prostitutes. That was also going on in Sodom and Gomorrah during a time of pagan worship for fertility. So it was kind of this, of course, it was not worship of Yahweh, but a different god. So they would have these kind of just times of worship where men would dress up as women, some women would dress up as men, but it was kind of this, it didn't matter which partner you ended up with, just as long as something happened for the hope of a, child later. So it was a fertility thing that was pretty, scandalous, to say the least. So that was a fascinating thing, how that was going on too. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder. I mean, I read and listen to a lot from the so-called Bible scholars, and I say so-called only because I don't know their names, but the Bible scholars, New Testament, Old Testament, and I'm really starting to get a picture that with respect to Sodom and Gomorrah, that it wasn't just the fact that the homosexuality was going on as to why they were being destroyed. I've just heard a lot of things about that. And again, it's just another one of those things where I have to say to myself, you thought that because you were taught that. You never really went out and examined it.
Yes, as a matter of fact, so was it Lot that had 2 guests in his home that was actually angels, and people from the city showed up with their families, which means their wives and children, so that they could welcome them, which tells me their way of welcoming them was to be this way with them. In other words, it was a way of the purpose of raping. It was not for any love making with 2 2 adults who decided to be partners. It was, we're going to rape them, and that's how we're going. This is our. In other words, they were not showing hospitality. There's a foreigner over here. Oh no, we're going to rape them. Let them out so we may know them, so that they would rape them. So that's how they were going to welcome them in. And So not every man who showed up at that door was a homosexual. The scriptures say they showed up with their families too, which might mean they're straight if they have wives and children. So, yeah, it was
Yeah.
because of their inhospitality. They were not hospitable. There's a book of Joshua. It's talked about, and let me make sure I've got time. Okay, I got a few more minutes, and so that's one of the books that are not in the Bible. But I believe what's revealed in that book is that someone actually befriended a homeless person and was on a regular basis giving this homeless person some food and water. And because of that, this person was put in jail or something to that effect. And it's
Mhm.
could have been the wife of Lot's daughter. So when she looked back, it makes me wonder if, she's leaving some of her children back there to look back, maybe concerned of her child, the this one that got put in jail for being hospitable. But that's what was breaking the law. She was being hospitable to someone who was homeless and needed food and needed water. Interesting, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, it really is. And I don't know. It's just this stuff. And I think the one thing that I do now that I really enjoy is something I never did the entire time I was a witness, and that is to look at these things critically,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just opening and saying to myself, "This is the inerrant word of God. Everything that it says is true." Look at it critically, ask questions, and see if there's any kind of proof, one way or the other, for or against what we're reading, and then what else is going on in other cultures right around the same time, and being able to compare and contrast. And when I approach it that way, it's fascinating. It really
It
is.
is. Yeah, it is. Before
Yeah. Something I
1946,
was,
before 1946, homosexual was not in the Bible. It was brought in about 1946, and then from there, other translators brought that in as a term to use as well. But before that,
wow,
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
That's fascinating. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I was on Quora looking up God knows what,
core
and
is
they
a
were
good
talking
time.
about how Quora's a great time, but they were talking about how and I believe it was either the Greek or the Roman culture, but the males would sleep with each other so much that when they were getting married, the women, their wives, the
Hmm.
newlywed wife, would actually dress up more as a male to try to eat, and they had a whole practice associated with this to try to ease the transition of the now groom from having sex with a male to now having sex with a female. So the female would start off, the wife would start off dressed as a male to ease that transition.
Oh, that's
And
fascinating.
that ties all the way back to what you were just talking about with the Sodom and Gomorrah,
Hmm.
what was going on. So I really think that this whole thing about, and we've always heard that with the Greeks. Um, so I think that this concept of the homosexuality has always been a part of these cultures from day one
Hmm.
almost.
Yeah. Centuriot. I think I'm saying it right. Like a centuriot warrior fighter. There was one that came to Jesus and asked him to heal his servant, and this servant was a younger male that at the time an older male would somewhat adopt and use as a servant and as a mate as well. Um, but Christ never told him, as long as you pray away the gay and all this other stuff. This was part of the culture at that time, and that was done. That was practiced. But he was brokenhearted that his that his servant was sick, and Jesus healed him. And when I looked into it more, these centurions were not allowed to marry. So if he wanted a wife, that was not allowed because of what he was doing as service, But when he came to Jesus, he's like, look, I know how this goes. You're at this position. All you got to do is say the word and it'll be done. And, very military, like, I know you can do this. And he did. He says, go home.
Right.
He's healed. He's healed,
Yeah, fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard the rumor that's circulating out there now that was the type of relationship between David, who was kind of waiting in the wings to be king, the second king, and Saul's son Jonathan.
Yes.
I've heard that from a number of sources, and of course,
that story has been considered a friendship love story for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was some of the things that was said. Matter of fact, I have this scripture in my kitchen here. Let's see here. I'm walking to the kitchen. The Song of Solomon 2:4. I have found the one whom my soul loves. And that's talking about David and Jonathan. And he had given him, I don't even remember which one did it, but they gave him the coat and the signet ring and these things that was like saying, you have this position as well. There's just things that when you read it, it can be a love story. Some people are just like, oh hell no, it's not. But it's in the eyes of the beholder, in the eyes of the beholder. So, and we weren't there.
No, we weren't there. And there's a verse now this isn't in Song of Solomon. I always thought Song of Solomon was a poem to a girl who was not returning his advances. But this is in the actual, I don't know, Kings or Chronicles or wherever it is. And David says, talking about Jonathan, that not my love for you, but we'll just say that word. It just escaped me what the actual term was. But he said something to the effect that my love for you is greater than it is for all women.
Right. And see,
and that's another verse. What's that?
Right. In these stories that I've heard, it doesn't mean that they don't have wives and that they don't have children, but there's a preference or an orientation. I don't know what to call it. But yeah, that happens.
Right.
And we are now at that point of
I don't think
turning
we
it back over to Rick.
I don't think we got the full. Yeah.
I missed what you said.
Yeah,
Can you say that again?
No, I was just saying I don't think that we've got the full understanding of the same-sex relationships in those ancient cultures. I don't think we ever got the full story.
Yeah, I don't either. And yeah, I don't either. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up, especially because I'm a lesbian. It came out later in life, and it was quite.
Oh, really?
It was quite scary because conscientiously, I'm like, God's not cool with that. God's not cool with that. God's not okay with that. And then finally, with some research, I saw otherwise. So
right.
So I came out at 41.
I'm African, and I used to be very homophobic, just culture-wise and just society at that time. And it just so happened when I finished college, my first job was clear across town in an area that was a lot more relaxed. It was also more of a hippie area. And there were a lot of homosexual people there. And of course, I would just be freaked out. And of course, at that time, I was a card carrying, witness. So that was just the abomination,
Right.
And I met this one guy who came in for service. And during the course of, repeated service sessions, we got to know each other a little bit. And he was just the coolest guy. And his name, I forgot what his real name was, but everybody called him Buddy. And he was the first person homosexual person I really spent any time around. And at the end of the day, the bottom line was, he was just like everybody else, except he just had a preference for the same sex. And I know that sounds like the most stupid thing to say and most obvious thing to say, but it really was an epiphany. And then after that, it really didn't matter, to me at all about that. But the thing that used to bother me was there's a verse in the Bible where it talks about we'll say same sex as being unnatural. So we said, oh, see, there you go. It's unnatural. See, the Bible says it right there. And then one day, I was thinking about something. I don't know how this happened. And somebody brought up this individual. And this was a guy that we knew that was a very close friend of mine who came out as gay at some point as well. And later on, he died prematurely, was murdered.
Oh, wow.
And the thing that always bothered me is that this was one of my closest friends. And we broke bread together. We shared money together. We traveled the country together. We were awesome buddies. There was a whole big group of us. Don't get me wrong. But I knew that this guy was a real friend. And it bothered me when I really thought about the fact that he had lived his whole life up to the point where he came out. He had to separate from all of us so that he could be himself. But he just lived a lie. He wasn't living his authentic life. And that was just heartbreaking to me. I mean, I'm a heterosexual. So if I'm with another heterosexual and an attractive woman or a sexy woman walks past, it's the most natural thing in the world for us to look at her and maybe we'll make a comment, oh, she's really cute or whatever. And move on about life. And he would have to fake those kinds of interactions so that he didn't stand out, that really didn't attract. And it just always bothered me that he never, up until that point, was able to live just an authentic life. He had to be what Watchtower said to be, otherwise family and friends would have rejected him.
Exactly.
It is definitely reject you. For
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we have to. Can you hear me? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've gone over the time that Rick had allowed and suggested for us to keep talking. So I need to let you go, but I'm loving this conversation. I'm sorry to cut it off, but there's a schedule we got going on, and I appreciate you calling in today. Very fascinating.
No problem.
It's really good. It's good to hear that it's good to hear that, as you are developing after you leave the organization, the empathy you have for others and can see that, that's really beautiful. Thank you. So I just want to thank everybody for calling in, and I enjoyed filling in for Anne Marie today, and I'm going to turn this back over to Rick.
Yeah, in fact, well, very good, Pasta Babe. Now, listen, will you be coming on tonight on your program? You want to give it a plug?
Oh, sure. Yes. So on my channel, Pasta Babe Linda James, I'll be doing a show tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific time. So it would be along the same time as I used to do the show on Six Screens. So about midnight your time, Rick, which is Eastern time.
It'll be 9 your time, right, Linda? Yeah, you might as well plug it because, people have been asking me, and I tell them that she has her own program. Go to your channel. So that's good, Linda. Well, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Thank you for filling in for Anne Marie. Keep waving that flag of victory, Linda, and keep moving in a way that is good. Keep moving in a way that's going to keep exposing the Watchtower. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Rick. Okay. Talk with you later. It's great
Thank
being
you.
here.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Well, anyways, we have got more programming tonight. We don't want you to go anywhere. Just to give you an idea, we have JW World News. That's coming up next, right here on the Six Screens Tele Network. And we've got some great news to talk about. We're gonna talk about that protest. We have Justin Quinn. He's gonna be calling in. He's one of the organizers of the protest in front of the White House coming up on Halloween Day. So Justin will be coming on the program. Plus, also we have Randy Waters. Now, you guys remember Randy was one of the first Jehovah's Witness activists. Really, he had a website called Free Minds. Many of us learned so many things, including myself, from his website. But Randy has fell on some hard times, and he's going to talk to us tonight about what really happened to him and how he got really duped and scammed because of some of the things he was involved in. He'll bring that up to your attention tonight. So Randy will be on later on tonight, somewhere around 8 o'clock, 8:15, somewhere there. And we're looking forward to that. And then, of course, at 9 o'clock tonight, if all goes well, Fritz Springmeier. Have you ever heard of Fritz? Well, he wrote the book, The Bloodlines of the Illuminati. And, of course, Charles Taze Russell is in it. He's got a program tonight. It's better than a 50-50 chance. He may have to work. We're not sure, but he'll check in with us and let us know. But we do have him scheduled tonight at 9 o'clock right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. So let's end this program. We're going to start the other program, which we have to move over to the other studio. So we're going to move over to JW World News up next right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. Thank you all for coming in. And those who spoke up, we really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So